from boardrooms to break rooms. If it's business, it matters. Welcome to another episode of Business Matters, where we discuss matters of importance to businesses. I am your host, Patricia White. In today's episode, we're tackling one of the most pressing challenges facing today's employers, that is attracting, managing, and retaining young talent in a world that is rapidly changing. Across Barbados and the wider region, business leaders continue to express concern about shifts in workplace attitudes, commitment, and professionalism among job seekers. From the way job applications are written, to attendance patterns, to resistance many leaders face when trying to guide and mentor. These continue to be some of the major concerns highlighted across many sectors. Today we'll unpack what is really driving these changes, the role of leadership in bridging the gap, and how employers can begin to adapt their strategies to meet the realities of the modern workforce. Joining me in this discussion today is Ms. Sherry-Ann Virginie. Sherry-Ann is a seasoned operations leader with over 25 years of experience in the BPO industry. Throughout this time, she has built deep expertise in collections, customer service, sales, and back office. Currently serving as Director and Operations Manager of the organization in which she leads, Sherry-Ann oversees the full spectrum of operational functions, from recruitment and talent development to the design and execution of strategic call center practices. These are aimed at driving revenue growth, operational efficiency, and exceptional customer engagement. Known for her collaborative, people-centered leadership style, Sherry-Ann has successfully led diverse multicultural teams and cultivated strong cross-border partnerships. Welcome to Business Matters, Sherry-Ann.
Thank you, Patricia.
So let's just jump into the discussion here. As you know, I've been leading recruitment drives for many, many years. So have you. We've had many discussions about what we've been seeing in the space, especially of recent times. Can you share with us some of the common gaps that you're recognizing now in the workspace, especially when it comes to recruitment and how applicants present themselves?
Okay, some of the most significant changes compared to previous generations, I find that the younger generation prioritize work-life balance. They like flexibility, and they prefer to work at 8 to 5 so they can do their personal work. And the approach to work is different. The mindset is different. I think social media has played a key role in that shift of mentality. In, let's say, for example, Zoom interviews, I'm seeing persons coming to interviews with bonnets and curlers, and the environment is not conducive for interview. You can hear profanity in the background. And in office, interviews are no different. I've seen person coming with slippers, extremely long colored hair, orange, green, all different types of colors, and that laid back personality, like this is what it is, so accept me for who I am.
Right. So you've noted about how you see them present themselves. How would you describe how they present themselves when you look at the application itself, the CVs and the cover letter? How are you seeing them presenting themselves like that? We talked about the physical, but how are they presenting themselves in written form?
I think the language has become very informal. A lot of slang and abbreviations, and it has become the new norm. I see cover letters where there's no introduction, it's just see attached. If you look at the email addresses, I'm very taken back by the email addresses, sweet doll and sweet girl and big this and big that. And it leads one to one, like, where is the gap? Where have we failed this generation? When we look at even the pictures are on the CV, they're very provocative. So I'm not sure where the shift occurred, but there's certainly a gap.
Right. So I want to hone in on that a little bit more, because as recruiters, as we who do a lot of recruitment, how would you say that causes a recruiter, or would cause a recruiter or a potential employer to view a candidate who presented themselves in the way that you described?
The first impression counts. And I believe in dressing for success. If you're having challenges in terms of attire, if you could wear jeans and a nice polo shirt, but as a recruiter, interviewing that person is like they're not serious, they're not ready for the world of work. You know, how will this person take feedback? And it just leaves a lot to be desired, is what I will say.
So in essence, it doesn't seem like they're really dressing or preparing themselves or preparing their introduction for the job that they would want, and they're not presenting themselves that would make an employer say, this is a serious candidate, this is who I would want to represent my brand.
I can agree with you, yes. I think I'm going back to social media because I think social media has heavily influenced this young generation. Formal dress wear have become outdated. I think this younger generation prefer casual attire, whether it's slippers, armhole, short pants, belly outs, and they think that that's the new normal. Even in terms of the resumes, we see resumes are so informal in terms of, as I said, there's no greeting, there's no subject. There even, if you look at these CVs, there's a one-page CV that it's like there's no information there that you can draw upon to say, okay, what skills does this person have? What can we hone in on? Is this person a good candidate to be interviewed? And I think social media have made a shift where that this is a new norm and this is what it is, and that society must
just accept it.
Just accept it.
I'm glad you mentioned about the CV and how it's structured. I'm seeing a shift where you're not seeing people including dates in the CV. So they may have the previous or current organizations noted. They may sometimes list some of the skills or the responsibilities, the core responsibilities that they performed with the organization, but you're not seeing the timelines for when they spent that they spent at the organization. So it doesn't give you a good gauge of like if the person has staying power, right? I find that it leaves a lot of information out that can help recruiters make the important decisions that they would need to make. Should I take a chance on even spending some time speaking with this person, because I need to understand whether or not they've shown a pattern of staying, of longevity with an organization. I also want to ask you now, we're going to move away now from the recruitment aspect and go now to when they enter the workforce. What are some of the shifts that you have been seeing when you've hired them and they've come in out to the workforce? What are some of the gaps and the shifts?
Some of the gaps I've seen is somewhat lazy, entitled, and unwilling to put in the work. The need to, for example, you can give them a task, give them the tools, give them the instructions. They bypass all of that and just jump right into it. And sometimes it affects productivity and being efficient, because now you have to go back, because the time needed to read what was required of you and read the instructions is a fast-paced environment. Get this done. They want the same result, but do not want to take the time to learn. Those are some of the challenges that we see.
And I could hear from that how it could cost businesses time, effort, energy, and so on, when you don't take the time to understand what it is that you're being asked to do, what the company wants of you. I could see how that could be a challenge, right? And spending time and resources, having to repeat it and do it over again if it is not done effectively. There's another trend that I've noticed too, as a recruiter too, where you book people for interviews and they are not turning up for the interviews, no shows, and they don't call to cancel, they don't send a message to cancel. Are you seeing that widespread too in your recruitment efforts, or in how they attend work?
Yes, I am, but I think this is, I am mixed with this, because from the candidate perspectives, it can be, they probably had another lucrative offer. Companies, and that's myself, the manager or recruiter take the time to really explain the expectations with their transparency. And with this younger generation, they like full transparency. So I think it's a mixture of both. So I think from the company's perspective, it's important to make sure we properly communicate the requirements of the job, the salary expectations. I think that will help minimize some of the fallouts that we are seeing.
Right. I could agree with you that communication is key, and making sure you set the expectations from very early on. But what I've found is that, especially when it comes to interviews, sometimes you give them all the information. You send follow-up emails to let them know the instructions, and sometimes they never turn up for the interview. The persons you've booked the time out, and you're sitting there waiting, the panel is sitting there waiting to have the interview, and the time comes and you never see the person turn up. They never show up, they never call, they never send a message. Sometimes you're the one reaching out to find out, you know, was there a problem? Did you have difficulty finding the space, you know, the place that you, the interview is being held at? Even in the workspace, when you've already heard some of them have come to the workplace and then all of a sudden you see a day they don't turn up, they don't call out. You know, traditionally, when we started at work many moons ago, we were expected, if we were not coming to work, to call.
Yes.
There are times when they don't ever turn up and you don't have a clue where they are, and you're calling and you can't hear them, and then maybe they may turn back up to the workspace 3 days later or 2 days later, or some may never turn back up.
And I can agree with you because I've experienced that firsthand, and I think there's a gap in terms at school and preparing persons for the workforce. I think they honestly don't see anything wrong with it. They see no ties or why they should commit to a company. They don't care about job security. It's all about work-life balance. It's all about my mental health. It's about how I'm feeling on this day. So I think that, you know, programs need to be put in place to help school leavers and persons be ready for the world of work. I think some of them honestly don't know. They haven't been exposed to, you know, preparing themselves for work. And some persons, it's like, this is what it is.
And I will say, I want to make sure we make it clear that there's nothing wrong with prioritizing well-being. Nothing at all wrong with that, well-being at work and having work-life balance and so on. But you have to understand when it comes down to, if you're crossing the line of being unprofessional, and when you don't turn up for a work that you've agreed to turn up for, when you don't turn up for an interview that you've agreed with the recruiter to turn up for, it then lends itself to being unprofessional and impolite. Not necessarily the whole work-life balance issue, right? Yeah. So to me, there needs to be a clarity surrounding what comes down to being unprofessional and impolite, and then what comes down to how you manage work-life balance and your mental well-being and so on.
I can agree with that, but I think that's where programs are essential to help prepare them for that, because they haven't had the exposure. They don't see it as being impolite. It's the new normal. So having programs put in place that will help them prepare for work and to choose a career path, I think it will be a win-win situation, because it will help with workplace readiness and retention for the company as well.
Yeah, I agree. So now that you've talked about programs, it would tell me then that you don't believe school or what we have existing now is really meeting the mark to have people prepared. So if you had to design something like this, what are some of the key things you would focus in on to, as a part of that program, to develop a program like this for the young people?
I think for me, it's about vocational skills. Spending time with soft skills as well. Soft skills is very important. I find a lot of the younger generation lack interpersonal skills and critical thinking, and it hinders their growth. Like, they feel like when they come into a new organization, it's like they're thrown into this new environment that's so unfamiliar. And I think developing programs where they utilize soft skills, training them for the world of work in terms of the expectations, will be beneficial to the younger generation.
Right. I want to also add to what you're saying with regards to that, because I found that I've heard some excuses like, oh, I couldn't come, or I didn't call because I didn't have credit on my phone, or I couldn't come because I didn't have bus fare, and they have been working for a significant time with the place where they would have been paid, and these are some of the excuses that you're hearing. So it also tells me that part of that program needs to be some element that focuses on financial responsibility and understanding how to manage your finances, so that you recognize that you need to put aside some for, you know, the important things like bus fare, if you have to catch bus fare, making sure you keep, if your phone is your only avenue for communication, making sure that you keep that ready and available to, you know, receive calls or to make the necessary calls that you need to. So to add to what you said, I think financial responsibility and recognizing how to manage your finances would be a very important part of a program like that.
Yes, I think that would be beneficial, because I do agree with you, because I do see it from time to time.
Right, you've heard that excuse before, right?
Yes.
Right. All right, so what we're going to do is to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Good times, everybody. Good times for all of we. It's time to have some fun. Good times for everyone. Corker cheese steak. Lots more salted or half them mixed. I'm a nut, fruit or cashew. Barbecue steak, ain't natural rings too. Toffee popcorn, fruity popcorn, caramel popcorn. Choose any popcorn. Flavor for this, good times is number one. Get yours before they're gone. Good times, everybody. Good times for all of we. It's time to have some fun. Good times for everyone. Good times, anytime, every time. Big good times snacks. Whoa. Plug in.
This stunning set was sponsored by Abbott's. You can grab every piece at Swan Street, Sheraton, and Welch's, or shop at your convenience at abbots.bb.
Come on, Jake. One eyeball. Wanna know go peep? Wanna gonna be worse? Peeping, everybody peeping. Them like too much peeping. Everybody peeping. I give them one eyeball, you know got to peep. You know got to peep. You know got to peep. I give them one eyeball, you know got to peep. And when you're done.
Yes, so thanks for joining us again in our discussion centered around applications and the recruitment process and young people in the world of work. So, Sharianne, we left off by discussing a program that could assist young people in being developed for the world of work. I want to now segue into some of the things we've been seeing in applications that are posted targeting candidates. I see a number of them with entry-level jobs asking for many years of experience. How do you believe this is leading to the frustration that you hear some of the young people are opining?
I think employers need to create a win-win situation. I think some of the frustration stems with employers not wanting to have to spend the time and resources coaching and developing some person who has no job experience. However, I think that everybody deserves an opportunity, that employers need to take the time to, especially for entry-level jobs where no qualifications are really required, to spend the time bringing someone into the company, coaching, training, and developing those persons, because you're asking for a number of years, but do your remuneration package compensate for the number of years that you're asking for? So I think employers need to be more realistic in that aspect, that especially young school leavers coming up wanting to gain experience, that they need to spend the time and give persons the opportunity to come into an organization, take the time and provide the resources needed.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. What I found, and I can recall from my early entry into work, I had little experience, and the organization took the time to train me and so on, and I ended up being very committed to the organization. So perhaps some of the commitment issues that people are saying that young people have could be related to that. If you're not willing to spend time to help me, why should I spend time all my years giving to you? So like you said, a win-win, where as old people say, one hand washes the other. I agree with giving the young people a chance to be able to develop under your care, especially for entry-level positions. What are your thoughts on young people's resistance? We hear people talk about young people resistant to being instructed when they're on the job, and resistant to discipline and following rules. What are your thoughts on that? What might be driving this resistance?
I think it's twofold. I think a lot of the managers are from the old school, and it's do as I say, don't ask any questions, and that's not going to work with the younger generation. The younger generation will ask questions, and they should. I think they generally just want to know what is required of them and what the expectations are.
And what's the purpose, right? It has to have it has to be purpose driven.
It has to be, and I think managers need to take the time to explain. So having a detailed job description and handbook, and not only having those, but taking the time to really dive in and explain to the employees what is required of them, and taking the time to coach and develop them. So I think a lot of the resistance, because employers, when met with what we will say resistance from the younger employees, or if they have a rebuttal, they see it as being that they're defensive and they don't want to take orders, but they generally just want to know what is required of them.
Yeah, I could see value in what you are actually saying. So that tells me then that there's a generational gap in how people manage. And you know, people said before, it's sometimes not what you say, but how you say it. So to what extent do you believe communication is playing a role in what we're seeing now, how people manage the younger generation and then the younger generation's resistance to directions?
I think that time is needed to create open dialogue, to create a culture where persons feel comfortable expressing themselves, expressing their concerns, offering feedback, and not a fear of, if I give feedback of probably a policy or a suggestion, that there won't be a fear that there will be a backlash. Creating a culture where persons, where there's dignity and respect for each other, create a culture where persons, a learning environment to promote well-being. So I find when that is not done, and communication has changed, because if you go back to social media, it's a bit laid back, you have slang. So I think that there's a lot of miscommunication because the older generation sometimes don't even understand the language. So to some extent, you may say that there may be a language barrier as well. So find a way to connect, and by doing so is to have a people-centric approach, to have an open mind, to ask them for their opinions, to create an environment where that persons can come and bring their ideas, because sometimes we don't have all the answers.
Yeah, that's true. We certainly don't. And the young people are very innovative. And I believe I've seen them come up with some very creative ways to solve things in the workplace. Some very creative ways to get the branding and the messaging out. So maybe perhaps if we took some more of these ideas and involve them in the process, maybe that could lead to a partnership rather than me lording over you and telling you everything I need you to do, whereas we work collaboratively and get the job done.
I agree.
Yes. So you mentioned quite a number of things that leaders could do to help young people feel more welcome and to integrate them better into the workplace, for want of a better word, right? So what would you say are some of the other big mistakes that leaders make when they're managing young people? So we talked about the communication aspect. What are some of the other, can you call to mind some other mistakes, one or two, that we make as more traditional leaders when managing the younger workforce?
I think a lack of empathy.
Empathy.
And sometimes there's underlying issues. Approach the situation like something occurred. For example, if an employee is constantly being late, versus going to punishment as the first thing to do, take the time to empathize with the employee, to find out, to dig deep, what's causing this person to arrive to work late. If the person have a negative attitude, and to find out and dig deep, like what's causing this. You don't want to be intrusive, but I don't think everybody wakes up every morning to
Decide to be late.
To decide to be late or not to be productive. I think that there's so much elements in their personal life that comes into work as well, and sometimes they can't separate it. So taking the time to really get to know your employees, taking the time to really deep dive into sometimes what we can do differently, sometimes flexibility. If your organization offer flexible shift, and let's say this employee works a night shift, maybe mixing it up so that they can work different shifts, because when you go to a government office, they don't open on weekends. Everything has to be done Monday to Friday. So create an environment where there's flexibility. Flexibility even in terms of doing classes and doing courses, because you will find that a lot of the younger generation, they are keen in doing a lot of side hustles, and they're about learning and doing a lot of courses. And when they come into an environment where it's not there, they would tend to just leave.
So you believe that's what's driving a lot of the turnover from the younger generation?
Yes.
All right. So we talked a lot about seeing the gaps in leadership. Now let's hone in on solutions. What are some of the ways an organization can help its leaders improve on how they manage the younger workforce?
I think leaders need to work on creating fostering open communication, open dialogue, and honest and transparency. I think a lot of companies, they're not transparent in terms of that it's a policy, how increases are done, how appraisals are done, probationary periods. So I think transparency is needed, because if not, it will be a lack of trust.
So I think a lot of it is stemming sometimes from a lack of trust.
A lack of trust, like, why are you not sharing information? If it's to benefit the employee and to benefit the company, something like wages, in terms of like what is needed from me. Employers need to take the time to coach and more, take the time to let the employees know what the expectations are, and we as managers need to put in the effort to train, coach, and guide and provide feedback, because employees need to know what is expected of them.
So we've had a very interesting discussion today. We looked at both sides. We looked at the impact and the experiences of younger people, and we've also looked at the experiences and the impact on the employers. If you had one final message that you had to give to employees, the young employees, what would that message be? I'm going to give you just a minute to gather your thoughts on that.
Put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot, but you know, we have. I want to a clarion call to young people, job seekers. What would that message be to them?
The message will be: social media has created this facade and this glamour, and they have taken out the hard work and the sacrifices needed to be successful. And I think it creates unrealistic expectations. So whilst social media is used informally, I think to use it as a tool to improve on your job hunting skills, to improve on how you can properly prepare a resume. Well, it will be good that you'll be taught to how to prepare a resume at school, but you could use social media to benefit you, to improve your life, to improve. If you don't know how to dress for an interview,
social media.
Social media. If you don't know how to write a resume, it's okay. Use social media. So use social media in a positive light to enrich your life, to get you where you need to be on your career path.
Right. So I'm going to put you on the spot again. Your response and my question was more centered around preparing them to get this job, to land this job. What would be your final message to them when they've gotten this job? How they can, the things that they can do to grow and develop in this job, especially based on the gaps that we've been seeing once they've landed the job.
To go in with an open mind. You know, we learn at different rates. Some persons are more visual, some persons are more technical, some persons are more hands-on, but to go in with an open mind. The aim is for both parties to be successful and to help us to help you. To be honest, if you're struggling, there's no shame in saying that you're struggling, because your success is a business success. So to be honest in regards to how we are learning, if it's something that we can do differently, you know, to be more forthcoming with your, be more forthcoming with your opinions and your suggestions. And to be accountable. Nobody is perfect, you know. There'll be trial and errors, and if you're in a situation where you will have probably failed or you had made an error, to don't be too hard on yourself. I find young people are too hard on themselves. That's all part of life. So just get up, pick up the pieces, and keep pushing on.
Thanks for that. I want to add to something you said about giving themselves grace if they make a mistake. That is, I agree with that point. But we also, as leaders, we have to set up, to establish an enabling environment that makes them comfortable to be able to say when they've made a mistake, to make them comfortable to be able to give themselves grace. Because if they make a mistake and we come down with the hammer, especially in the first instance of a mistake, then what will happen is they will either hide the mistake or they will not be forthcoming with it. Therefore, they can't give themselves grace. So I think it works hand in hand, not only them being kind to themselves, but us as leaders also being kind to them when they make a mistake too. Right?
Yes,
Right.
I agree.
As we've explored today, the challenges of hiring and leading young talent aren't just about changing attitudes. They reflect a much deeper transformation in how people view work, success, and purpose. If businesses are to remain sustainable and productive, we must move beyond frustration and invest in understanding, training, and guiding this new generation with intention. At Global HR and IR Solutions, we believe that part of the solution lies in early preparation and holistic development. That is why we're excited to be launching the GHIS program. This is an initiative designed to not only prepare young people for work readiness, but sustainability related to staying the course once the job is secured. It will also focus on preparing them for planning for their lives by teaching basic financial literacy. Through GHIS, we aim to bridge the gap between helping our young people not just get jobs, but to keep them, grow in them, or grow into another one that is bigger and better and thrive. Over the next few months, we will be rolling out the relevant information related to the program. So keep an eye on our social media forum for that. I want to thank my guest, Sherry-Ann Virginie, for joining me today for this very critical discussion. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Business Matters. If you believe the program has provided you with useful information, give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our Instagram page so you keep abreast of all of our content. Until next time, signing off. From boardrooms to break rooms, if it's business, it matters.